Hi, I want to talk about Doctor Strange and how love stories work in multiverse movies. Um, I saw Doctor Strange really recently. Absolutely loved it. Fantastic movie. It was absolutely so good. Uh, and the Sam Raimi-isms I just love. I grew up on the Spider-Man movies. So many times I was just giggling like the little mega dork that I am. Just like, this is so weird. Like, you just like kind of wake up and realize what is happening right now. Also, I love it. So sure, I'm going with it because this is amazing. I love Sam Raimi. He's great. The thing I love the most was definitely that at the end of the movie, just that Steven came out and said, "I love you" to Christine, right? The whole movie, they had been like dancing around their feelings and stuff. And like, it would get so awkward and it was getting awkward again. And I felt like they were just going to like not say anything and just kind of drift apart, which is so natural to do, but so annoying that they keep doing it. But then he just broke and he just said, "I love you. It's not that I can't love or don't want to be loved. It's, I just get scared." And that was so raw. In my opinion, the biggest point of multiversal love stories is that they can't get together in the end. But I'm glad that he laid it all out there anyway, because that's what his character should have done in that moment. That's what he should have done. And it's so choice that right after that, he met the character that, in comics at least, eventually becomes his wife. All that to say, now I'm going to talk about the thing about how multiversal love stories work. In my opinion, there are two kinds of multiverse movies. It's funny because if you go to my webtoon right now, artyboy_navarro, I'm working on a story called Unlocked, A Guide to Earths Beyond. And it is not the kind of multiverse story that I'm about to tell you. It's actually the second type. The first type, which I think is better, ironic that I'm not doing it, but multiverse movies are uniquely about like how things could have gone. And they kind of represent what we do all the time of imagining like, what if it went this way or what if it went that way? And what if is such a great title for a multiverse story. And then there's the second type, which is about like just uses the multiverse as just another fantasy setting. In these types of stories, you will not see another version of your main character or another version of characters in the story, because it's not about how timelines diverged. It's kind of just interchangeable with going to different planets. I use it that way in my story Unlocked. It's just about like going to other places that are very different from where you come from. And that's the angle I take with it because of the direction the character's going. It's sort of the most extreme escape. So I just use it for that escapism aspect, whereas very obviously in the Doctor Strange movie, they're using it for the other ways it could have gone aspect. And I think that's so choice as a response to COVID-19 and the way that we think about COVID-19. I heard somebody say this on TikTok. I can't remember who it was, but they said that after 9/11, we got a lot of superhero movies because watching things destroyed and kind of reclaiming that kind of traumatic destruction. After the nukes, the Japanese people made Godzilla, which is sort of a response to that feeling. After the recession in 2008, we got a lot of zombie movies. Like, we as a culture gravitate to certain kinds of fiction to deal with different things we're going through. And we went through COVID-19, and the biggest question is like, what kind of art is going to come out of this? It was so weird how we started saying that immediately. And what we found out was, okay, actually for this couple of years, it's going to be hard to make art because we're all going through something. We forgot that that's how it works. There is a delay. Like, we thought we could get art about COVID right away, and that didn't work. But now the art about COVID is coming, and I think it's multiverse movies, or at least that's what the TikTok said, that they think it's multiverse movies, and I tend to agree. And here's how I think that applies. In Doctor Strange, the main villain is somebody that you're deeply caring about. Wanda is like a hero. And Doctor Strange is like a hero, but they're both kind of like villains. They're both treated like villains. They're both gone through the same huge trauma that everybody else gone through in different measures. At some point, she's like, do not compare your trauma with mine, because the way, I was about to say COVID affected you, because the way the blip affected you was way different than the way it affected me. And mine ended up being pointless. And you found some sense in yours. You found some grand purpose and you got to be a hero. And that's kind of like what it's like to have gone through COVID. It affected everybody differently and in different degrees. Some people's lives were relatively unchanged and they are now realizing that they have trauma because of it, but it was like this slow onset. And other people, it's like, boom, their lives fell completely apart. There's the way different people react to it. Some people react to it finding some grand purpose and feeling like, you know what, I'm going to be the hero of this situation. And they are respected for it. And other people make choices that are not immediately appreciated. And in fact, there's a lot of talk on TikTok about undergoing your villain arc. It's like, you know what, screw it. Because of the things that I've gone through, I don't want to try to be the good one anymore. And if that means that I'm the villain character, I didn't make that label, but here we are. I'll embrace it. That's so COVID. And when it comes to the love story in the multiverse movies, as somebody who has spent a lot of time reliving the same year, the same breakup, the same relationship, and I've spent a lot of time replaying, what if it went this way? What if it went that way? And one of my biggest fantasies, partly just power fantasy and partly that sort of romantic fantasy of like, what if I had access to the multiverse and I could see all the different ways it could have gone? And I'm like, okay, in one universe, I'm with this girl. What would that have looked like? What kind of a person would I have to be? What kind of a person would she have to be for that to have worked out? What kind of people would our parents have to be? Like, what would have to change? And honestly, too much. I don't know, but too much. Like, and then I run through every relationship. Like, what would have had to change for this? What would have had to change for that? And the attractive thing about the one you really miss the most is always like, well, but it's so close. Maybe I wouldn't have to change much. And maybe if I just popped in the right situation, it would work this time. And that is that feeling of hopping dimensions. If I could just hop into that other world, maybe in this place it'll work. And that's what Wanda wanted to do. And in a way, with Christine Palmer, that's what he wanted to do too. But the point of these stories is that you have to recognize at the end of the day, this is just your fantasy you're building in your head. These are not real people anymore. They're your own fiction of the people. So when I look back and I say, I miss this person, I don't really. I have to admit to myself that I don't miss that person. I maybe miss the version of them I knew, but at this point, it's been so long and the memory has been so distorted, I can't love even the person that I knew. I only love the version that I made up of a version of themselves they were. Do you know what I'm saying? Like it is layers of not a real person anymore. And you can't get with not a real person. You can only get with real people. And so at the end of the day, you don't get the girl of your fantasy because it is a fantasy. And in the same way for multiverse movies, it doesn't make any sense for you to get with the girl in a multiverse movie because she's not real. You're chasing a fantasy. You have to deal with your own consequences. And if that world sucks and if you're not happy, find a way to make yourself happy because this is all you got. Reality is all that's real. And it's hard for me as a creator, as a storyteller, because I get to make things up quite a lot and make them almost real. Sometimes people even engage with it. Sometimes like one or two, I'll have a friend who's like, you know what? Ever since that story you told me, or that essay you wrote, whatever, this is the way I think now. And it's so exciting. You're like, then you're kind of validating it, and it's real a little bit, but it's not. And you can travel the multiverse all you want, but you still have to go home. So for the main character to have any kind of growth, they have to go back to their own world and face their own consequences. They can have changed because of the multiverse. They can have new tools and maybe even new helpers. but they can't find all their answers in the multiverse. And that's what I loved about Doctor Strange, because it really recognized that. At the end of the day, Doctor Strange did not get with Christine Palmer. At the end of the day, the Scarlet Witch had to face the consequences of the evil things that she was doing. I mean, everyone's better for it. It was hard, but everyone's better for it. And you want to play in the multiverse, you want to play in this fantasy space, but you have to come back to reality, and you will be better for coming back to reality. Anyways, those are my thoughts on the Multiverse of Madness.
Hi there, Outro Artie Boy here. Sorry I was so depressed in that video, and I clearly sounded it. I was speaking in that way. I feel a little bit better now, but it's been a while. Anyways, I'd just like to ask you to follow me on all my social media. Please subscribe to this channel, like the video, share it. If you have any way to sort of, nobody knows me right now, but if you have any way to help it so that people know me, that would be great. I would love that. And ring the bell. That feature hasn't really worked for me in the past, but hopefully it'll work for you. On my end as a subscriber, it hasn't. Maybe my phone's messed up in some way. I don't know. I'm getting a new one this week. But thank you so much, and you have a great one.